Let me bring in a couple more experts now to discuss. NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris is here, and Valerie Borline. She's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal who has extensively covered Alex Murdaugh's case and the prominence of the Murdaugh legal legacy in South Carolina. She's also author of the book, The Devil at His Elbow, Alex Murdaugh and the Fall of a Southern Dynasty. Thanks to both of you for being with us. Valerie, I'll start with you because you've dedicated a large part of your career now to this case. With all the insight you have, are you surprised that those convictions were overturned?
Well, I would say I've been covering this case for 5 years, Kate, and it is surprising to be where we are. I think that the jury, their verdict was so clear. They reached it in a very short amount of time, just a matter of hours after the 6 weeks of testimony. So if you'd asked me in March of 2023, when the verdict was reached, whether we'd be here, I wouldn't have said so. But we have come to understand, and the Supreme Court was very adamant, this was a unanimous ruling on their part, that the remarks from the clerk of court, Becky Hill, to members of the juror, they found them credible. Not only that, they found them an error that they couldn't correct for, right? They weren't harmless. They weren't offhanded remarks. So I am surprised to be here. I would have not expected that we would be facing a do-over of the most streamed, one of the biggest trials in our history.
Yeah, indeed. Such high interest in this trial. Misty, the state does say they plan to retry Alex Murdaugh, and you heard Laura Jarrett explain that there are now some constraints on what prosecutors can do in this new trial.
Right. So they overturned the verdict based on the misconduct of Becky Hill. But what the court also did was say that too much evidence relating to financial crimes came in the first time around. This is really relevant because the prosecution's case was centered around Murdaugh's motive, which was financial crimes that led him to commit murder. So if prosecutors have to limit that, and we don't know what that limitation will be, that could really mean a big pivot when it comes to their trial strategy.
Right, because it was a lot of what they were using to try to create a motive, right? He murdered these people because he was in financial trouble.
Yes, he was in financial trouble. He was on the brink of being found out. And so to get sympathy, he murdered his wife and child. It was a huge part of the motive in the case.
Valerie, the court clerk, back to her, Becky Hill, was outspoken throughout the trial, even writing in her book that she met you while you were covering the case. What kind of influence, from your perspective, did she have on that jury? And what else have you learned about that alleged jury tampering?
Well, I would just remind everyone, Walterboro, South Carolina, where this trial was held, is a small town. It's 5,500 people. I'm from the South. I mean, Becky Hill, the clerk of court, was Miss Walterboro when she was young. She knew a lot of the jurors before they took their seats in the jury box. And in that courtroom, there were only 100 or so of us on the daily basis, and we all knew Becky Hill very well. We relied on her a lot. I think you'll remember that Alan Wilson, the attorney general we just heard from, as well as Dick Harpootlian, the lead defense lawyer, thanked her for her role in running a good proceeding. So it is surprising to understand now, after we've had the benefit of this lengthy period of time with juror testimony, that there were some things that the courts really felt were out of hand and out of bounds. Because yes, you're right, she was someone we all knew and interacted with on a daily basis.
Yeah. Misty, Alex Murdaugh is already in prison on these other financial charges that he pled out to. Will he remain behind bars as he serves that sentence? Is there any chance that what happened today disrupts that part of things?
Nope. So that part of things, he pled guilty to those crimes. He's sentenced to 27 and 40 years between the state and federal financial crimes. So that remains intact. The big question becomes, do prosecutors go for a second time around? Attorney General vowing today during a press conference to move forward with a speedy trial relating to the murders.
And Valerie, your reporting also dives really deep into the Murdaugh dynasty, right? His influence in the South, in that small town. That picture you were painting is so vivid. And his stunning fall from prominence. Do you think that he'll be able to get a second trial that is a fair trial with a jury who doesn't know anything about him?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Kate, in the sense that this is a family. The Murdaugh family had run both levers of the courts, civil and criminal, for the better part of a century in that part of the world. And jury tampering in a small town was a lot of the way that things got done 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So there's a certain irony in the jury tampering allegations. But I think one of the things that stood out to me today was the question was for years, Alex Murdaugh was credibly accused and pleaded guilty to all manner of theft and wrongdoing. So it used to be the case like, well, the rules don't apply to Alex Murdaugh. You know, he can do what he wants. And then the question was, well, do the rules don't apply to Alex Murdaugh in terms of a fair trial? And I think what the takeaway for me today was the Supreme Court says, even for Alex Murdaugh, who was a scourge on the legal profession, this is so important, the sanctity of a fair trial, that we're going to award him one. And I do think we will have another do-over of this wild case.
Yeah, well, maybe another book coming. Valerie Bourline, Misty Marris. Is that a bad joke? We'll see. Thank you so much to both of you. Appreciate it.